Welcome traders, this is Mr. Realistic coming at you with a tutorial video on authorized shares and outstanding shares so that you can understand the structure of a company. All right, before we get into this, please know that I am not a financial advisor. Everything I say or do is purely for entertainment purposes. Please do your own due diligence and research before you commit into doing anything. All right, so let's get into this because it's very, very important and will help you understand how a stock can get to a certain price point. All right, and when somebody cries dilution, what that actually means and what it does to the stock so that you completely understand it and how it affects the overall stock. All right, so we're here at the OTC Markets website, which is otcmarkets.com. So you should become very, very, very familiar with this. This is where you will find all the stocks on the OTC exchange and that you will be able to pull up and look at their files, look at any press releases, look at the share structures and everything. So let's get into it. Oh, also their pink status, their current status. So let's get into it. All right. So if we go into quote here, and I told my people at VNTH that I would do a video for them on this as they just had some concerns about some restricted shares coming in. So here we go. I put in VNTH at the quote sign and it pops up all their information. So right here, we have the overview of the company as we scroll through. I'm going to show you what each tab does before we get into it. All right. Trade data has a chart right here as well. Real-time quotes, me, use your broker, um, news, and some filings as well. Company description. Sometimes this is not up to date, FYI, and any type of videos. I rarely look at any of those things on here. So that's just the overview of everything. Okay, so if we hit quote, it'll show us the quote stuff that we just kind of saw, the short interest on here. Um, the accuracy is hit or miss. If we hit company profile over on this side, it'll show us what this company is, where it's located, phone number to get in contact with, financial status and reporting, and the company's officers, so the president and CEO, CFO. Sometimes these aren't updated. It's important to check this out and make sure that the company gets this updated and making sure that OTC Markets updates this as well. All they have to do is fill out some forms. So this is their auditing and accounting firm that they use, their investor relations, marketing and commissions, and security counsel right here. Profile data as well, and everything, um, and company notes. All right, so let's scroll back on up. Now, this is going to be one of the most important ones, the security details, and this is what we're going to get into today. This is the share structure of the company. I'll come back to this in a second. All the shares are held at this transfer agent, which is Pacific Stock Transfer Co. Um, these are the corporate actions taken on X date. No dividends in this one. Short selling data is, like I said, hit or miss. News, self-explanatory. Financial, so you'll get a spreadsheet of their financials going through on these dates. The best thing to do with financials is go to disclosures. So if you click on disclosures here, this will upload all of their filings that they've had. So they have had SEC filings that they've done. So 10/15, 2021. So it'll show the report. So if we click on this 8K and open it up, all right, and now we can read it at the SEC Commission, Form 8K, which is used for telling shareholders some important information that they file with them. They have all these boxes, and if you scroll down, we go through it. Okay, so trading symbol, common stock, par value, OTC markets. All right, here we go. So item 1.01, entry into a material definitive agreement. So this is just a statement on what they transpired on said date. On October 14th, 2021, pursuant to an effective settlement agreement for undisclosed amount, the company bought back the convertible notes that previous managements sold to VVIS Vires Group Incorporated, also known as VVG, a corporation formed and existing pursuant to the laws of the state of New York and having a principal place of business located at and said address. Okay, item 5.02. Also on that day, Frank I. Igualer resigned as a member of the board of directors on the board of Nano, the company, effective as the date of such resignation. Mr. Igualer also resigned as chairman of the board and chief executive officer of the company, effective of such date. Resignation was not the result of any dispute or disagreement with the company or the company's board of directors on any matter relating to operations, policies, or practices of the company. David Noah Kittle has been appointed president and CEO for the company effective the 14th. All right. So this is the best way to get your information straight from the company because they file it through the SEC and they let you know exactly. All right. So they had a press release for that and everything, and settlement agreement was on the 14th. You can click on that as well. I'm going to X out of that and go back. So it has all these documents that you can go through. So it has Form C and the SEC filing. So it tells you exactly all these offerings um, and whatnot as they go through. This is for any company. They'll either have it on here, um, on the SEC filings, and also you'll get a lot of statements from other companies. I'll show you another company where you'll see quarterly filings up here, and you'll see the attorney letter. Those are for going pink through the OTC. You can do it as well through the SEC. So two different divisions. Okay. And then also they had a 15-12G. Okay, you can look these up and they tell you exactly what they are. So this is certification notice of termination of registration under section 12G of the Securities Exchange, 34, blah, 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 blah. It says the company, everything. All right, place an X, so 1248. So is the termination of that rule into their filings, and they just have to make it official through the SEC. Okay. So you'll be able to find all the filings and everything in here. It's very important to be able to read and understand financials. Um, when a basher or somebody who is saying that a stock is being diluted or they have a bunch of negative material, um, they're they're getting their material. You can back this up, or you can double check this and reference this through their filings, through their financials, and everything of that nature. So you want to become very familiar with this as well. So the biggest ones you're going to use are disclosures right here, which will give you all those filings, those important filings, and you'll understand that. Obviously, up here will tell you if it's what status it has as well, and then security details, which we're about to get into right now. So, security details. All right, so let's go over this. So, from my understanding on Friday, is that based on that 8K that was gone out, is that VNTH took out um, their notes. They paid them off. They got their notes back from um, that VVS company. We don't know what the amount was for or anything of that nature based on that. Later that day, we find out that VNTH has taken 335 million shares, okay, um, out of the or place them into the outstanding shares. So they put them into the restricted side. All right. So you need to understand the difference between restricted and unrestricted, and I brought up pages for visuals for you as well. So I want to, why don't I do this? We're going to compare two stocks um, to make it very helpful for understanding this. Okay, and this is going to be um, eye-opening to a lot of you. All right, so we all know ILUS, huge runner of recent, and we want our stocks to have this TSMP humble type runs, ENZC type runs. Okay, um, majority of these runs to dollar land, as we like to call it, um, is because of the share structure. Okay, so let's take a look at VNTH and their share structure before we get into any of the outstanding shares with VNTH or anything, so you understand it. Okay, so we have our market cap. All right, market cap is calculated only for this class of securities. So market cap is your price, all right, into the outstanding shares, and that makes up your market your market cap. Okay, so authorized shares right here. Okay, you have 100 billion authorized shares. That number is extremely outstanding. That's a huge number. That is not a very typical number you do. As I've said in my bearish or bullish 105, they have a reduction coming in for this as well. I believe it's a 94 billion share reduction, so it'll be down to 6 billion authorized shares. This was from the old CEO who just resigned, and then the new one is getting taken care of. It's going to take some time. But authorized shares are shares that could could be exercised, okay, and put into the outstanding. Okay, so let me see here. Go through looking for this as well. All right. Oh, sorry about that. The moved on me here. Okay, so we have authorized shares. Okay, so these could be going into the outstanding shares right here. All right, could be going there. Not saying that they will. All right. So what we want on hypothetically, they could exercise this 100 billion into the share. They won't do it. It would just be craziness. Um, so that's what they're done. So they can use this to pay off, um, add more shares to there, so they can get more capital, so that they can pay off debts, get acquisitions, all of those things. Okay. So when they dilute, they take from the authorized shares and they put them into the outstanding shares. Okay. So when you hear dilution, okay, so they're adding more shares to the outstanding shares. All right. So let's say that, we add a billion. This is false. This is for just for reference. Okay. Let's say that they add 1 billion from the authorized, okay, to the outstanding, okay? This would make this number right here, instead of a 3, would be 4, okay? So we're looking at, now we make that 4,273,765,298, okay? That's what dilution would be, okay? Now, this is the difference, and I'm going to pop this up, okay? So let me turn off the pen real fast. All right. So authorized shares, okay, right here, are defined as the maximum number of shares that a company is legally allowed to issue to investors as per its own determinations. The maximum number is established in a company's legal formation documents, known as articles of incorporation. There's no limit to as the total number of shares that you can be authorized within these documents. All right, yada, yada, yada. The number of shares actually available to trade is known as the float. So let's go back real fast. Float's right down here. Okay, not available. We'll go over that in a second. All right, so let's move down to outstanding shares. Okay, so right here we have The number of shares actually available to trade is float. There are also restricted shares, which are set aside for employee compensation and incentives. Restricted shares are also part of the authorized shares. Okay. The total number of a company's outstanding shares, as seen in the balance sheet, is the sum of float and restricted. Okay. So shares that are issued or sold to investors, us, okay, from the available number of authorized shares are known as outstanding shares. The number of outstanding shares is set by the investment bank that implements a company's IPO, but the number can change, all right? That means you can add and you can take away. A secondary stock market offering can increase the number of outstanding shares, as can payment of employee stock options. Outstanding shares decrease when a company repurchases its own stock. Okay, they say, I'm going to buy back shares. The total number of outstanding shares cannot be greater than the total number of authorized shares. So basically, in VNTHs, they cannot have 100 billion in one. All right, it's not allowed. It's illegal. All right, as we go through. Now, for investors, understand the difference between authorized and outstanding shares allow for more accurate calculation for financial stuff. For instance, outstanding shares to be determined per shares inflation. All right, so let's just go back real fast and I'll go over that. Okay, so authorized is could be. Okay, this is the highest number it could be. Outstanding shares can never go above this number. All right, this is not the traded value. What the traded value is the outstanding shares. Okay, what is available to us, the retail, to trade, unrestricted, which is typically the float size. So whatever you're trying to buy, all right, through your broker, it's known as the float. If it's not available, I take it as the unrestricted amount. Okay, that is the float. So of the 3.27 billion shares available for VNTH, the unrestricted is the retail version that I'm taking as the float since it's not there, of 2.9. So 2.9 of that is traded here. Okay. Restricted shares. Restricted shares are used for employee incentives, as it said, and other things. So what VNTH did is when they took that offering of 335 million shares, they did it from the restricted side. Okay. So it didn't affect retail traders. All right. Restricted, we don't deal with. That's the company side of things. All right. You get your acquisitions, paying off debt. Sounds like something they probably did with those convertible notes. So we are worried when we come here and look at this. This is what we are looking for. We are looking for authorized shares. How many shares could go there? All right, that's a scary number. It's getting reduced from what I've read of 94 billion less. Okay, so leaving us with 6 billion. All right, and then I'm looking at restricted versus unrestricted, because restricted is what we need to worry about because that's what we trade with. Okay, so ours is 2.9 billion. All right, so I'm gonna bring up a couple different stocks. So I'm going to have one with less and I'm going to have one with more. All right. So let's go with ILUS. Okay. So ILUS, of course, it doesn't have a restricted, unrestricted, not available. Let me see if I can find another one. But as you can see, the outstanding shares are less. And I think MJWL would be a good one. All right. Here we go. Perfect. So MJWL, all right, had a nice run to 25. 26, I think, actually. All right. So as we can see here, the authorized shares, the most they can authorize is 5 billion. Currently, the outstanding shares is 1.7 billion. All right. That is updated right here. Now, restricted. Half of that is restricted, The other half is unrestricted. Float is not available. I go by unrestricted. So technically, we're looking at a float of what we trade of 856 million shares. All right. So you and I, if we went to buy MJWL, that's how much it's moving by. Okay. That's how many stocks or shares that we trade when we're buying it. Okay. If we go back to VNTH, we're looking at 2.9 billion. Okay. So big difference here. Okay. Now, so when we're talking about 26 going through there, that's a large number of increase. So if we multiply that by, it's like 3.5, I think, off the top of my head. Okay, so 8.5. Yeah. So let's just say 3x to get there is a little more. So this has 3.5 less times shares. Let's just say 3 to make it round. Okay, so 3 less. So if this got to 24, okay, so if this got, oh, I'm sorry, say 20, this got to 26, okay, cents, okay, all right. VNTH would be, if they equaled that same run, it would be 3 times less. Okay, you divide that number by 3 right there, it comes out to 8 something. All right, so 8 cents. Let's just round it a little. It's like 8.2, let's say. Okay, so if VNTH went on a similar run to MJWL, it would be an 8 cent run because of the shares based on the market cap. Okay, remember market cap is into your outstanding shares. All right, it's how much your company is worth. All right, now that's not saying MJWL is worth more than VNTH or whatnot. That's just that would be the same type of run as that based on the shares. Okay, so the share structure, you can think of this as moving. If this was equal to one elephant or one tank, let's say one tank, one tank, all right, and you had to pull this tank to get it to move, all right, VNTH, you would have to do 3.5. I think we said we just do 3. It'd take 3 times the it'd be 3 tanks to move. It's insane. Like, wait until we get to GGI. All right. So it's 3 times the size. GGI. All right. All right. Luckily for this one, they're all on the restricted, but as you can see, this is a huge number. Okay. So GGI had a huge run. I believe off the top of my head, it went to 16. All right. The reason that it got to that high is because we had authorized shares of 75 billion shares. Insane. Okay. The outstanding shares is 54 billion. All right. But you'll notice that 51 billion is of the restricted side. So that means our float is right around here at 3.2 billion. Okay, this isn't updated yet. If you can see, this is updated recently. This is back in June. So we're looking at a float right here, unrestricted 3.21 billion shares traded. Okay, so this is actually 300 more million than VNTH. Okay, so slightly more, but you can get to that 16 because of that. But this is what I'm talking about. If this number was here, this thing would be 0.0000108. Okay, because that's insanity right there. You don't want to see that at all. Um, but that's what you got to look out for. And that's why you have to understand the difference between authorized and outstanding and restricted versus unrestricted. Okay. Final recap of it. Authorized shares are the shares that could be introduced into the outstanding shares. Okay. So this total number could be this total number. This number right here is how many that's been used of this. Okay. So if we wanted to get to this number, they'd have to put in 25 million and the other change in the back of it, and they'd be maxed out. They cannot go any more than this. All right. Restricted is for the company, it's incentives, it's other things. Doesn't inversely affect um, the retail side. The retail side is unrestricted. This is what gets traded on and in the market. All right. So this is what we trade, also known as the float. All right. So in turn, that is that. When we talk about low float stocks, we are talking about stocks that are roughly a billion or less traded in the OTC markets. PJET's a great one. Okay, so they just raised their authorized shares from I think it was 1 billion to 2 billion. Oh no, people freaked out. They lost out on that one big time because they didn't understand it. Okay. So they took this authorized share count up, they've doubled it to 2 billion. This was just recently, and the stock took a dive. People ate it up, and now it's at an all-time high. Okay. So make sure that you understand that because these were not introduced into here. As we look at it, the outstanding shares is 759 million. Unrestricted is 729. That is our float right there, okay? We're taking that as our float. This is how much we trade. So let's compare low float, medium float, 2.9, okay? Then I know one off the top of my head that I can't stand, SAMP, because I think their CEO. And this is why I get on them all the time. It doesn't make any sense. And this is why they won't have the run that they keep talking about. SANP, Cardano, all right, it has a $20 billion authorized shares. So what it could be, it's already gone over and they've diluted, okay, outstanding shares. This used to be at 9 back in like April or June or something. They've already diluted 2.2 billion shares, if not more. Okay, all right, so they've added 2.2 from here and put it into here. All right. Notice that the restricted is only 150 million, so they're putting it into the unrestricted side, which means this is affecting, all right, you and I, the retail investor. If you're buying SAMP, they put it into the unrestricted. That is dilution of more than 2 billion, okay, in a couple months. That's a lot of dilution, and then why the stock has not been rising um, to where people would like it to be. All right. Also, we're talking about PJET 729, VNTH 2.9, and now we're looking at SANP 11 billion right here. All right. This float was in 8/26/2020, 1 year ago and a month and a half. Okay, so 13 and a half months ago, it was 8.2. Now it's 11. So that's almost 3 billion in a year. Okay, FYI. So it has increased the shares that we trade by 3 billion. That is dilution. That is very bad dilution. Okay, so that's why you have to be able to understand that. They added that many shares, so now when you trade it, it has 3 billion more shares to trade. Okay, and what happens is, let's say that it was at this, and let's say they added a billion into it right over here, and let's say it went up to 9 right after that. All right, so the prices are moving because they're adding those shares in and it's dipping down because they need to get buyers to bring it back up. So the price dips down, it keeps dipping until it gets there. All right, so that's why people sell out on when they hear dilution, is because the price will be forced down because they're adding those shares and it can't catch up and it needs a lot of volume to do it. So usually companies dilute when they have big news because they have large volume that can handle it. RGBP is one of them as well. As we go through there, I mean, there's a bunch of them, so you have to be careful, and that's why you need to understand that as well. Okay, 4.8 billion. They've almost maxed out. They're at almost 4.5. Not a lot in the restricted side, ton in the unrestricted side. All right, so those are some red flags for me, and this is one of the reasons why when our RGBP runs, it stalls out and then it flatlines and drops down. It's because they are constantly diluting it and bringing the price down. Okay, so keep that in mind with your stocks, and that's when the bashers come out and do it. You go, oh, get out, do this and stuff. Yes, they are bashing, but make sure you do your research on it and that you understand that because there are reasons why a stock goes back. It's not because they are bashing, it's because the company is actually doing something that they're not supposed to. All right. If they're not and they're telling false lies, then you understand. Oh, they're diluting it. No, I looked at the shares and on 9/15 they were at 4.4 billion. Okay. And it's the same on that. Okay, we're looking at it and it's updated on X date and they're the same. There's no dilution. You don't have to worry about it. All right. So it's very important to understand the whole share structure, okay, and where to see those financials as well. All right. All right. This one a lot longer than I thought it was, but this is probably one of the more informative videos that will really help you understand the share structure and how a company can run to a higher SP, all right, stock price. Okay, so when you have a stock price or you have a stock with a high amount of unrestricted outstanding shares, okay, leading to a high float, so 4.4, you're going to have to work a lot harder to get to that, which means your company is going to have a very, very, very good product that is worth billions of dollars to make it worth that, okay? Billions of dollars, okay, if you want to get to a dollar, okay? We are at a little over 2 cents on RGBP, okay? With all the outstanding shares, the market cap of this company, what it's valued at, is 94, let's say $95 million, okay? I think it's worth way more than this. And it will be with patents and acquisitions, and that's what it will be based on speculation and whatnot, and that's what the price is going to be paid on. But that's what you're looking for. PJET is only valued at $21 million. This thing can run to dollar land a lot easier than RGBP because RGBP has 4.4, which means they have to have a superior product in going through. But if they get to 720, 760 $1 million valuation, that's a lot easier to get there. Okay, so because they have less unrestricted and outstanding shares. VNTH, all right, same thing as well. All right, so in fact, outstanding shares market cap is at 32, $33 million. Okay, so as we go through, they're going to have to work a lot more and be worth more than PJET or MJWL or ILUS because they are going to have a higher market cap to reach that dollar land and be worth it. All right. People overpay a lot, and that's why the price comes down because they don't understand valuation and they overpay. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. I hope this was very informative to you. I hope this really did help. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the day leading into this trading week. All right. Catch y'all later. This is Mr. Realistic.